Today we're going to demonstrate how to build a hockey stick flyover roof. We've got metal roof sheets. In this instance we've got timber fascia instead of metal fascia. Now these brackets are designed to go up through the fascia and attach to your rafter. Now it's really important if you order one of these roofs that you know the pitch of your roof so that they can be made to the correct angle. Now with the metal roof, you're going to have to unscrew, remove the sheet completely, or leave one screw in at the top and move the sheet to one side. As you can see here, we've totally removed the roof sheet from the roof. Now it's important that with the rafter and the ceiling joist, that your upstand bracket goes on that side of the rafter. Now to find the location of the rafter on your fascia, all you need is a combination square. You can slide that down the back of the gutter, down the front face of the fascia, line it up with your rafter, mark the location on your fascia. Then you need to measure down 60 millimeters. In this slot, roughly 12 millimeters wide. And that is the section you need to take out. Whether it be timber fascia or metal fascia, all you need to do is drill a hole at the top and the bottom of that area that you've marked. And then remove the rest of the material, timber or metal. Timber, you can use a reciprocating saw or drill a series of holes and ream it out. With the metal fascia, you can use green and red tin snips to cut up each side. Okay, now you can see that we've cut the section out of the fascia so that we can slide the upstand bracket up through the hole into the correct location. Now what you require is to be able to install your upstand bracket, small magnetic level, a clamp, a drill with a 12mm driller bit, and your 12mm bolts that have been supplied, normally 50mm long. You should have 3 for each bracket. Now I have the bracket. I'm going to slide the arm in through the slot, push it all the way up, touches your fascia. Going to put the level on the front. I'm going to put the arm in position. Once I'm level, then clamp it. Okay, that's now in position. So next thing you have to do is drill your holes, put your bolts in. You may need to put the level on the side there because you might have to install some packers at the bottom end of the arm of the bracket to make the bracket plumb. Okay, now we have our 2 brackets installed for the demonstration. We're building a flyover roof which is 2 meters wide by 3 meters long. We have the brackets bolted here with the 12mm bolts, 3 bolts, and we plumb them up both each way, sideways, front and back. You need to level, put on top, and see if they are level. If not, you'll need to level them up and mark where the posts need to be cut. Square all the way around using a grinder, cut the top of the posts off. Now, these brackets that we're using here today, they are a different type of bracket that you will be supplied with your kit. The supplier supplies these brackets. It's just have the thin arm through there, which will come out under your gutter. So now we have the brackets in place, roof sheets reinstalled, posts cut off. Now it's time to set out for your beam. As I said just before, we're doing a roof that's 2 metres wide, insulated roof. So the actual width of the insulated roof will be roughly 2 metres and 40. So you'll work out your start point. In this instance, I'm just going to start from that point there, and we're going to measure 2 metres and 40, where my roof's going to end up. And knowing that the beam supplied for this would normally just be 2 metres long, if you've got a patio that's 5, 6 metres long, the beam will be supplied around about 5 metres 20, 6 metres 30, something like that. So I'm going to come in 20 mil from there, a 2 metre beam, and I can measure from that point there to the outside of my bracket, which will give me the location of my first internal bracket to go on the bottom of my beam there. The second bracket, measure from there to here, so that's 1130. That will give me the location for the second bracket. Okay, now in your kit you'll be supplied with a U-bracket, flathead bolt, square washer and a 10mm nut. Now the components end up going together like that, and the bracket will sit on the beam. Now I've measured from my start point to this bracket, that bracket to the next bracket, and then transfer those measurements onto the beam on both sides. Measure to the centre of the beam. Do the same on the other side. Okay, now we have our marks. I always find it good to start with a pilot hole. And then with your 10mm drill bit, drill from both sides. Okay, now the shear bracket needs to go the same side as the bottom plate of your end cap to your beam. And you need to put the bracket on facing that way, because later on you've got to put a bolt through the post and through this bracket to hold it in position. Slide your bolt in, put the bracket on, square washer on, 10mm nut, tighten up your bolt, and then just repeat that same process in the next post location. Okay, we now have our 2 brackets bolted in position. I've got mentioned before, with your beam, it's got 2 laps, one top, one bottom. It's very important that that upper lap there is on the outside of the roof at the back and the front when you put your posts in. You simply get your beam, you've got your brackets in the right location, just put one end in, drop it down, and the other end should slide straight in. Now that's the beam in position. Now that we have that there, you'll have 12mm bolts supplied. You need to drill through the post and the bracket and install the bolts that have been supplied in your kit. This roof we're building here for the demonstration, you set the hockey sticks quite high. Sheets will be sitting on there. Building a roof at 3 metres that we've allowed for using 75mm roof sheets. We're allowing for a 900 overhang at the back, which is the maximum span for a 75mm sheet. And then we're projecting out to the front of our gutter this way. You can see that we bolted through the post and the bracket there to hold the beam in place. Now I'm going to set out the way that I set out one of these roofs. First thing you want to do is come down off the end of your beam and mark that on the ground. You also want to plumb down from the back of your beam, put another mark. Now because our roof's going 3 metres overall from the back to the front with 900 overhang there, you've got to take the 900 off your roof. So from that point I put there, you're going to be projecting out 2.1 metres to your gutter. Now to set it out square, I'm going to normally do a 3, 4, 5 triangle for a larger roof, but for this one, I'm only going to do half of that. So I'm going to use a straight edge. I have a point in the wall there. I'm going to work off. Measure 1.5 metres that way. And I'm going to measure out 2 metres this way. And then do my diagonal from that point to here, which should be 2.5 metres. Move that in until I'm square. And then from the mark I have on the ground, measure out here. To 2.1 metres. And I'll get a measurement from the wall. That same point, do the same the other end of the roof. And then take my straight edge, line it up with those 2 marks, and that gives me the outside of my gutter. So from that point, you need to measure in 180mm, take your gutter off, allow for your gutter, and the Z flashing, this will sit against your beam. Measure in 180mm. Move my straight edge to that point.
Good.
Okay, Now set out for my beam. It's going to go on the front part of the roof. That's the mark here. It's the end of my beam. So if you look up here, we have our beam end caps, which will have the beam to go under the post. It's roughly 70 millimetres in this instance. Now you've got to think about where your downpipe location is going to be, whether it's going to be this end or that end. For this exercise I'm going to put the downpipe at this end. So to work out what I'm going to do with my post, simply level the concrete, that's level there. The other end, that's level there. Level there, and that's showing that I have line fall going to my downpipe. Now from the mark on the end of the beam there, I'm going to measure in off that 70 mil. To be the location my plate for my post. And you go 70 mil past that point there. Measure the 2 metres for my beam. And again, come in 70 millimetres for the end cap. That is where that bracket will go. So now I'm going to install the bracket. 12 mil drill bit, just drill a hole, concrete. The square washer on, dynamo, hammer. Repeat that exercise with the other post bracket. Now that we've done our set out, we've got our post brackets in place. You know the concrete's level through here, and we have fall through there, so both our posts will be the same length. Now, when you get your posts applied, you should have a pre-scarf post. Now, to determine the height of the posts out there, I've gone from there to my bracket, 1800 millimetres. So over 2 metres fall, you should have 35 millimetres to the metre. So if that was 2 metres, you want 70 mil fall. All you need to do, because we're level through here, is measure to the top of your beam, and then take your 70 millimetres off, and that will be the top of your beam out there. So when you go to cut your post, measure from the top of the scarf to the length you require, mark, you cut your post the length of the grinder. I've already pre-cut these posts for the exercise. Now I'm going to show you the post is cut. I'm going to show you how to prep the post for installation. Now you need to determine your bolt holes using a 100 millimetre beam. So I'm just coming down 30 and 70 millimetres. Mark the centre of your post, like that. From the bottom of your post, install it to your bracket that you put on the ground. I like to pre-drill 2 holes on each side. pre-drill with 10mm holes in the top. Okay, now I'm going to put the post in position. Always goes on the outside. Slip the post over the bracket. Leading stall forward, takes reach to each side. Okay, now we have our two posts in their locations, freestanding at the moment. It's time to prepare our beam, put up on our posts. Now with the beam, once again, ensure you have this lip on the top here. Make sure that that is on the outside, on the gutter side of your patio, so that the water doesn't get into the beam. If you have it around the other way, the water will run down and sit inside the beam. Now I'm going to put end cap on this end, top of my beam, slide that on. I like to clamp it nice and tight. 1/8 drill. Move your clamp, move to the other end of the beam, and just repeat this process. Okay, now the beam's got the end cap on each end, got our post in position. It's now time to put our beam on our post. As I said before, beam should be located right at the edge of the end caps. Beam. Stop the beam falling off. That's the end. And there you have your beam in position, ready for bolting. Now in your kit you should be supplied with a beam bolt, nut and washer. And through the holes that we pre-drilled in our posts, we'll drill through both sides of the beam, through to the outside. Once you're all the way through your beam, come to the outside. Because the square part on your cup head bolt, you need to ream it out for that to go into the beam. Once you've done that, you install your bolt into the hole. It should fit neatly into there. Put your nut and washer on the side of the face. Tighten it up using a socket or a socket. Leave it clean and repeat the same for the top hole and the other post. Okay, now we have our beam bolted to our post. It's time to brace the post up, get it plumb both ways, get it set ready to put the roof sheets on. There's a couple of different ways of doing this. If you've got a larger roof, you put the brace top of your beams, set them back 1200 from the end, on the end you're going to start from, and then you can put a brace on the end where you're going to finish. In this case, I'm going to put a brace in the post back onto the screw on the roof sheets. If that was a tiled roof, you'd always slide the tile back, remove the tile, whatever you need to do to find the tile batten, and put a screw down into the tile batten. And sit it up on the head. Screw in there. It's always good when you're doing it this way. Have a bit of cardboard or something to put against your post. I'll need to plumb my post up, get it in position. Plumb. Bring it in position. That's one way of doing it. The other end I'm going to put the brace on the top of the beams. Here I've got aluminium braces that we use all the time. You might want to get some timber from Bunnings and the screws that you require to do this job. Now, screw this in. I need to come down, plumb my post up again. Screw down to the top. Now they have the post plumb in and out. I now need to put a cross brace on it, brace it sideways. Just sit under there. And up the other end. Check it for plumb. Wait a minute. There it is, all braced up, ready for your roof sheet. Okay, now it's time to prep your sheets before you put them up on the beams. And this is the gutter end here with the overhang. Now, depending which way you've ordered your roof sheets, to shoot from left to right or right to left. This being the first sheet, and we're starting on this end of the roof. There's no need for us to cut this flap off on this sheet until we get to the last sheet. We'll go through that a little bit later on. Now the gutter end here, you need to turn down the end of the sheet. Got the water runs off, in you go. Now on the back end of the sheet, a pair of duckbills. Pull them up to a 90-degree angle. Tap your corners up. Where's the duckbills? And get it to a 90-degree angle. We feed that through the angle of the sheet. And there you have your turn-ups. Okay, now we flip the sheet over. It's time to peel the plastic off the bottom side. You start from one corner, work your way through. Sometimes it'll stick, so you just use your hand to clear the plastic. And now it's time for us to put the roof sheet up onto the roof. We're going to flip the sheet over. And lift it up into position. It's very important to use towels so you don't scratch scratches on the sheet from the end caps. I'm going to move the sheet back. I have approximately 60 millimetres hanging over the front. And with the set out that I went through earlier, we should have a 900 overhang at the rear. Once you position the sheet, you want around about 10 to 15 mil past the beam. and then you can remove the towels and screw the sheet in position. Okay, now we have the roof sheet up in position. You need to locate the centre of your beam, transfer your mark to the top rib of the roof sheet using a 1200 long level. Hold it on that mark, and at the other end line it up with the centre of the beam and mark all of the top ribs. Once you've done that, provide it with roof screws. Now, depending on what type of roof it is, you might have two different lengths, one for the high ribs and one for the low ribs if you've got no overhang at the back of your flyover. Now, I always like to use a hammer to pierce the metal, to put the screw in, put it in and screw up. That's the first screw. In this sheet you need another two screws there. You never put a screw in here because later on when you put your barge on, it'll impair your barge. Okay, now I've put one screw in down the bottom. What you need to do next, drill the square, hold it against the beam, put it down the side of the sheet, make sure that the roof sheet's square to the beam. Once it's square, repeat what you did down the bottom end by marking the centre of the beam to the level, centre of the beam here, mark all of your top ribs. If you had no overhang past the beam, because the rear barge capping will come down to here, you need to mark the hollow of the sheet. Put your screws down there so it doesn't impair the rear barge. Okay, now with this being your last sheet, you need to remove this flap so that your barge sits hard against the bottom skin of the sheet. We use nibblers. You mightn't have any of those, so you can use a grinder, or if you've got a power saw with a metal cutting blade, you can also use that. Just going to cut the flap off. Okay, now we're going to put the last sheet on. You carry it, put it into place, roughly line it up in position, and then you need to lock the back of the sheet in place. Once that's been done, then slide the front part and lock the sheet into place. Make sure you line the sheets up the front, top skin lines up, that's all good. Remove the towels and then screw the sheet down as we did before. Okay, now we have one of your side barges. The side barges should come roughly 25mm, the width of that, longer than what's required. The barge needs to sit over the top and under the sheet. On your beams, this end here, you need to put a folded tab for when you put your rear barge on. I've already marked this. Use the square as the width. When you come to the top of it, come off the same line, and you need to create an angle there that needs to be cut out for where the sheets have been folded up at the back. cut through along the top first. At that point, fold up. Red snips, cut a slight end. You can turn the barge over. Do the same thing on the other side. Now that you've done that, there are duckbill folders, that's what I call them. Clamp them on to where your line is. Simply fold the end around. Now that you've done that, you can get your barge up to the top of the sheet, where you want it, roughly 5 millimetres past the back of the sheet. Push it in over your beam. Now, down here we have to cut out to accommodate the Z flashing that goes in here and the gutter goes up there. And what you need to do with the combination square, come out roughly 10 millimetres past the end of your bottom skin of your roof sheet. Mark a line there using the combo square because it's got a little level there. You can plumb up off that mark using the outer edge. The line down there, move it forward, the second line, and then I just use the blade of the square. I have it down 3 or 4 millimetres from the top, draw my line through there. This part here is going to be your tab, so you need to leave that on. Do not cut that off. I'm going to show you how to cut that out. So we start on the outer line from the underside. Cut that, peel. Work your way up to your line. Get your red snips, cut all the way into here. That point there. You can angle cut that down to there. Once again with your green snips, move the rest of the bottom section of the barge. Once again, pick your folders, simply fold the end around. Earlier in the video when I mentioned the size of the roof of a building, this one's 2 metres. I said it would end up roughly 2 metres and 40. You can see here now, the side barge on, we're hanging over approximately 20 mil each side. Showed you how to cut this one. Just done the opposite to the other end. And there you've got to measure for your gutter, so measure from the bottom of your barge. Bottom of your barge, and that's exactly 2 metres and 40. We've already pre-cut our gutter, 2 metres and 40. And our Z flashing. We've installed the end caps, the rivets, so they're all on. And you've got to measure for your downpipe outlet. I said the downpipe is coming to this end because our beam's falling down that way. Just measure from the bottom of your barge to your post. I've got 135 millimetres. I've already measured that. Mark the centre. Put a pilot hole there. Now position your downpipe dropper or pop, and with the pencil mark around the inside of the dropper, and you can get a 12mm drill bit, make that hole a little bit bigger, and using a pair of red snips, just cut out to your line and go approximately 3 millimetres
outside your line the whole way through. Okay, so we've cut our hole out for our dropper. Roll your gutter over, apply silicone to the entire perimeter on the inside. Put your dropper into place. And then drill through. Got 2 rivets in it. Now that that's done, you can smooth the silicone out around the perimeter, make sure you've got a good seal. Some around your pop rivets. Now for the Z flashing. Z flashing we like to put on our gutters, but before we do that, we have the remaining section of the barge here that we need to cut out of our end caps. With your snips, cut there. I like to come up to that mark there on the end cap, cut into there, cut that section out. Now we pre-cut our Z flashing the length. And pop rivet it to the lip of the gutter. Do that right along. And then the last thing you need to do is silicone your end caps at both ends. And the gutter's ready to be installed. Okay, now just prior to me installing the gutter, measured from the front of the sheet back 50 millimetres and pre-drilled holes in the centre of each of the low parts is the roof sheet. You bring your gutter over, hook it on, we screwed that off. We pre-drilled 50mm holes, holes 50mm back from the edge of the sheet in the low ribs. Accommodate our screws to hold our gutter and Z flashing on. We pushed it up, installed our 2 rivets into the end of the barge to hold the barge into place. Okay, now it's time for us to put our rear barge on. We've already cut this. I'll show you how we set it out. Same as the gutter. Measure from barge to barge at the bottom. And this happens to be 2 metres and 40 again. And then what we do is we do our combination square and we set it to that point there. Transfer it to the end once you've cut the barge to length. Mark that point there. Square a line down to that point. You need to come down whatever you want here, and no less than 50mm. Put your square there, mark your line to that point, and cut that out. That's so that that sits over the top of the side barge. Once you've got the rear barge in position, put a screw in this corner, one in that corner, one there, and the screws have to be no more than 40mm apart all the way through there. So now we'll put the rear barge in position and we'll show you how to scribe out for the profiles of the roof. Okay, now I'm up on top of the roof. I have the rear barge. So I'll drop that down under the roof sheets at the rear. Line it up with the outside of the barge. Simply pull that upwards. Lock that into position. Done. Now that I've got that in position and the corners lined up, I'll put the first screw in. Stop from moving. Now, like the foam blocks in under the barge, stop it from rubbing on the highs. You can see there's a slight mark. Now with marking out for your ribs, you can either do it by eye, mark the bottom, the top, and the bottom, or you can use your square once again. It's perfect width for the top of the rib. You can mark either side of that, move it to your mark, mark the bottom, do the same on the other side, and mark the bottom. And then using your red and green snips from this side, simply cut from your bottom line to your top line, bottom and top. On the other side, use your green snips. That forces the metal down, fold your tab under. Repeat that all the way along until you've cut all of those out. Then you can remove your foam blocks. Screw the feet. And stitch it back. And there you have it. Now, before you finish, you need to stitch the laps of your sheet. So, from your screws on your beam, lay your tape out. It should be stitched every 900. I've got pretty much exactly 800, so just one screw in the middle. Then screw